Good evening and welcome to the Littleton Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, December 3rd, 2018. Proposed agenda is 6:30 organization, Pledge of Allegiance, read mail. 6:35 we have updates from different town to the town board and departments, police department and the planning department. 7:10 public input and members updates. 7:20 discussion of a vacancy in the Park and Rec Commission. 7:30, joint meeting with the Housing Authority to fill a vacancy on the Housing Authority Board. 7:45, update from the Town Administrator Selection Committee. At 8 o'clock, various items from the individual town administrator, mostly regarding license renewals and also follow-up from the town meeting and meeting schedule, proposed meeting schedule. 8:30, minutes approval. 8:35, we're anticipating 2 executive session items. But first, I'd like to ask the board and those present to join me in a moment of silence for our past president, 41st President of the United States, George Herbert Walker Bush, a good and decent man, a great public servant, a native of Massachusetts. Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, if you'd lead us in the pledge.
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Anthony, you want to lead us through the mail?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. The first thing I want to, I know that you're aware and the community is probably aware, but the outstanding police work that was done on Friday by the Criminal Investigations Division, Littleton Police Department, Chief Penard, Deputy Chief Patterson, outstanding work. Got a opiate dealer that was dealing with OxyContin off the street, so kudos to the men and women of our departments.
Great work.
Okay, Comcast sent us some notification that's effective starting December 20th that certain prices and fees are going to be going up for broadcast TV fee and regional sports fees here in Littleton. So in the packet, there's a chart. It's going up a little bit in some of the areas, so I just want to make the citizens aware of that. Next item I thought that was important to bring up in light of what happened in the Merrimack Valley this summer with natural gas. Annually, the Department of Public Utilities requires gas companies to do emergency response updates. So they had one for our area. It was Thursday, November 29th, of which our Emergency Management Director, Chief Wodzinski, and Deputy Chief Clancy participated. Verizon, effective February 1st, 2019, the Z Living channel is no longer going to be part of their package. And Il Forno, they're having a holiday appreciation luncheon on December 10th, of which they're inviting the entire community. There's 3 seatings. They're asking to please contact the Elder and Human Services and the number provided on the flyer just to arrange for a meal, but this is what he's done in Fitchburg. It's really an appreciation to the community for supporting him. So he provides a free lunch on him, and I think there's going to be some of us that are going to be serving, including myself and Selectman Knox, his wife, and Selectman DeCoste, and Selectman Napoli. So we're going to have
What time is this?
starting at 11 o'clock. 11
three
through,
seatings.
there's 3 seatings,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, get back to me on the time. I got to run out and get Dad at one of those.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, perfect.
please.
The senior lunch, the Friends of the COA are providing a free lunch in December. It's titled their North Pole Celebration. It's in the multi-purpose room. It's catered by Whole Foods. And they're please asking for seniors to sign up. Reservations are a must. And the last thing is Maren Toohill, our planning administrator, had sent an email. Judy Barrett, who's conducting the the plan down for the train station that she's working on. She recommended that a small working group be there that she could bounce things off of every 4 to 6 weeks. So Maren recommended that, normally this is something that's under the purview of the planning board, so they really could have just handled it themselves, but they wanted to include one member of the planning board, one member of the Board of Selectmen, one member of the EDC, as well as the town planner and the town administrator, as somebody that could support Judy in her efforts. So,
And pointedly, not a formal committee.
not a formal committee, yes, just a working group.
I know this is one of the priorities you expressed last
Right.
summer in your priorities. Would you like to represent us?
I'd love to.
Okay.
Board okay with it?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
If nobody else from EDC is interested, I'd be,
Oh, that's right, you have another bite at the apple there.
if that, I mean, if we wanted to open it up to the EDC and have somebody other than the Board of Selectmen there, but if
Well,
not,
that was,
I'd be
yeah,
happy to.
that's the
You go
recommendation.
hammer that out with your buddies on the EDC.
Fair enough.
I'm sorry, Cindy?
It's EDC as well.
Right,
Yes.
I was gonna say Chuck
Yeah.
could well
Right.
Right, great.
serve in that capacity, but.
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Great,
I don't know if we need a formal vote on that, just let the minutes show what Cindy will represent us.
fine. And we're on number 2, town board and department updates. The first item up here is the police department with an appointment of a reserve police officer, and here to tell us about it is Chief Bernard.
Okay, Chief, please come forward.
Good evening.
Evening.
Thank you for having me. Today, I'm bringing before you Sean LaFave. Sean's a Chelmsford resident who went through a interview process with us. He recently graduated in May 2018 from Endicott College with a bachelor's in criminal justice and a minor in psychology. So don't ask him too many questions, he's not trying to get in your head. Sean went through an interview process with all the sergeants. We're still down 2 more bodies for our full capacity of reserve status. Young kid, ambitious, looking for it to go. You know, hopefully we can groom him to a full-time position eventually. But I present to you Sean LaFave.
Okay, terrific. Sean, what we generally do is, we do have your resume in the chief's letter recommending you, is ask you to explain in your own terms, just for us, for the board, and also for the town that's watching, who you are, why you're interested in serving the police department of the town of Littleton, and then if any board members have any questions or comments, we'll follow that up, so.
So growing up, that was always kind of a role that I played in my family. I'm the oldest of 4 boys. I've always been sort of a lookout for them. Like I said, growing up, that's just always how I was. It's still my nature today. I live to serve others, and I'd love to have the opportunity to be able to bring that fire to Littleton to, try and improve the community in any way that I can.
Okay, great. Board members, any questions? Mr. Knox?
Just one, it says that you're currently a special officer in Chelmsford?
Yeah.
What type of things do you do as a special officer in Chelmsford?
So over in Chelmsford, unfortunately, we're not allowed to do patrol shifts. We do work details, so that's the capacity that I work in over there. As part of being in the auxiliary unit over there, we are also required to work town events, so things like the tree lighting that they host, the event that they hold on the Common on the 3rd of July, the 4th of July parade that they host. We are required to work those, and those are voluntary. We don't get paid for those events, and that's just sort of a membership fee, so to speak, to be a part of that unit. And there are other events that come up throughout the year as well, whether it's road races, different town gatherings that they're going to host around town, voting sessions. We are asked to volunteer our time to work those as well, to give back to the town.
Thank you.
Okay, Selectman DeCoste?
Required but voluntary, I love that. It's, you've got a lot on your resume for a young guy. Appreciate that, and I think it's a vast experience, given the fact that you just graduated last May. You happen to watch any of the Endicott football games?
Here and there, more NFL.
Okay, good.
More of an NFL fan than college, when I have the time.
Does Western New England?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotta send it Western New England.
Oh, okay.
Tough game this year.
Okay,
They eked out the championship, though, so it's all good.
okay.
No, I appreciate you putting yourself forward and being willing to do whatever, whatever the community needs in this capacity, with hopes, I'm sure, of getting on the department in a full-time capacity.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Selectman Napoli?
I don't have any questions. Your resume is certainly impressive, as Mr. DeCoste said, and welcome aboard. Happy to have you here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's worth noting that, it's in the, yeah, that within your time in Chelmsford, you have served in a number of different capacities in the police department, and beyond that, service at the state police barracks in Reading, and dispatch at Tingsboro Police Department, so a lot of, and a candidate for EMT status right now, too, as well. Great. So a lot of that. Now, what jumps off of my resume that I'd like, off your resume that I'd like to get at, is from your time as a security guard for Live Nation in Mansfield at Great Woods there. Which act had the most rowdy crowd there that you had to work with?
I don't remember who it was. It was one of the rap events that started last summer. They had 3 or 4 big name rappers come in, and that drew the rowdiest crowd.
It says here you de-escalated disruptive situations. You were successful at that?
Yes, there were quite a few of those. Worked towards diffusing, so.
Yeah. But you only stayed there 4 months, too.
Well, the scheduling didn't work out, unfortunately.
Right.
I had the opportunity of going full-time at Leahy, so
That's terrific.
one took the other.
That'll be good experience for third Thursdays.
That's right, yeah. This town looks sleepy, but you never know. Every now and then, it's crazy edge comes out, but.
If it's going to be liquor, maybe.
So, okay. With that, I think we're probably very much in a position to entertain a motion.
Certainly. Move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Sean M. Lefebvre of Chelmsford, Mass. as the Reserve Patrol Officer for the Littleton Police Department.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded.
We get a picture.
Yeah, well, we'll do that. Any further discussion? All right, Chief, I remember back when John Kelly first got on board, we started to get a bunch of Irish kids in here, and now we start going to see a bunch of Frenchmen now that you're the chief. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, man, Chief.
These are the good things, right? Like
Yeah,
this.
yeah, the fun stuff. All right, Anthony?
Yes. So the second item we have from the planning board, and again, town planner Maren Toohill is requesting that the board accept a $2,900 donation from the Town Fair Tire. This was as a result, the planning board has a traffic and pedestrian mitigation policy. During the negotiation of those, they worked it out for Town Fair to make this donation. They're also going to be doing some refreshing to bike path, walking path and hiking trails along Beaver Brook. And they'll also allow up to 2 spaces for anybody that's using those trails. So this is that donation from Town Fair Tire.
Terrific. Is there anyone here that's interested in that subject? I don't see anyone from the planning board here. Oh, you guys are. Okay, terrific, sure. And
And Grace, 82 National Road. I'm a member of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge this gift and thank Town Fair. And I'm interested to know whether such a program can be extended, because there is a tremendous interest in more pedestrian activity in this town, and we hear it over and over again. So we'd like to see more of this.
well, this is a byproduct of a policy of, is it a policy of the planning board?
Yes.
Yeah, and so it's kind of dependent on the amount of projects they get for us to, specifically get funding toward these kind of projects from that source. Not to say we can't get funding for sidewalking from other sources, but that's,
It's all
yeah. Good, and Jerry?
Oh, no, Jerry Cavalli, 8 Uplands Road, also on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. I just wanted to make sure that those funds were actually used for sidewalks. I know sometimes the funds get short and things get moved around, and I'm hoping that stays here and we can actually use it for
Well,
sidewalks.
keep your eye on things, but I'm sure this is all right. Good input, and thank you. All right. Welcome.
I apologize for being
No,
late.
no, that's fine. All right, folks, any other comments on the acceptance of the gift from Town Fair Tire?
Thank you.
Okay. And I think actually the motion is pretty specific.
It is specific, so the money would go into a special revenue account that is for, solely for traffic pedestrian safety improvements, and it'll be under the auspices of the DPW Director, Chris Dodded.
Okay. Will he make us aware when he actually does something with this, or
Certainly, I can make him aware. I know that.
just so we...
Yeah, he was mentioning, I know that we needed some curb cuts up at the Common to make it more handicap accessible. So I think he was talking about maybe using a piece of that during the construction of the Littleton Veterans Corner.
Okay,
So, but yes, he'll come back and let you know.
terrific.
Just real quickly, are there other funds in that mitigation account presently, or is it just,
$2,900.
all right? That was my understanding, but it's, okay. So, to Ann's point, we
It's
need to
a
find other
start, right.
opportunities to start pumping some money into that to
Right.
help that type of mitigation.
Okay, good point. We ready for a motion?
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, to receive a gift in accordance with the Littleton Planning Board's policy on traffic and pedestrian mitigation from Town Fair Tire, 501 Great Road, of $2,900 to be deposited into a special gift fund account to be used without further appropriation by the Director of Public Works, used solely for traffic, pedestrian, and safety improvements.
Second.
Okay, the motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. All right, we're a little blissfully ahead of schedule, so why don't I suggest that we take items that we can assume the public may not have an interest in toward the end of the schedule and move them up a little bit. That's all right. Anthony, maybe we'll start with minutes. Is that all right? Okay. While folks are locating, I know I had one particular point for the November 5th meeting. I am mentioned during the minutes, but that those present, I'm not listed there, and I was at that meeting, so that should be added in there. And it's kind of a general comment, but it most specifically applies to the meeting minutes for the 19th. A lot of this just recounts motions and votes taking, but there's not a lot on the deliberation and detail, and I think, say, especially in the case where we had the property tax classification hearing, a lot of members shared a lot of, I thought, thoughtful commentary that, should be a part of the record, so I don't know, I'm not necessarily looking to go back and rewrite these minutes, but just going forward, Diane's still the one doing these, right? Or,
No, not actually those. We sent those out to, actually Jen Gibbons
okay,
put those two sets together.
all right.
I mean, I do think they meet, they, in fact,
meet the
far
legal
exceed the
requirement.
statutory
Yeah.
requirements, but you're right, there isn't a
Yeah.
ton of deliberation.
And, I thought we'd arrived at kind of a happy norm where that was captured in there as well. If members, opine on something other than, a side remark, it ought to be captured, I think. And-
We'll pass that on to let Jen know to be more aware of that, the deliberation.
Yeah.
I would say striking a balance, though, between what we don't want are highly deliberative minutes 6 months after the meeting,
Right.
right? So that's also not.
But the record is as much for the public to go back and access too, so if there was a discussion, and various members voiced different opinions, that ought to be in there somewhere.
Yep.
Okay, we had a good thing going for a while there, so if there are new people taking it, granted, Jen did it years ago, and maybe, just whatever the flavor of the board is, and I hope that that's acceptable to her.
Yeah, I think to your point, though, a balance does need to be struck, and every meeting is recorded, so that is available to folks, too, if they.
Yeah,
if
do they
read
keep,
through-
is the archive like eternal, or do they get rid of
Go back quite a ways.
Yeah.
Just gonna search it.
He has it online for
Yeah.
at least a year, but they have a copy and.
Yeah. Still, within the bounds of what's been stated twice here, a happy balance, if we can capture more deliberation. Would be
Pass that
great.
on.
To your point, again, especially with regard to a sensitive topic, and there was some pretty thoughtful discussion.
Yeah.
Jen, what he's really saying is he wants any compliments of him to make sure they're recorded in the
Jen
minutes.
knows me well enough to know that's not true.
Is this thing on?
I was thinking of all the intelligent things you people had to say about tax classification.
I'm sure that's exactly what you're thinking.
But we don't want any books either.
Correct.
Who said that? We had it good for a while, and it changes hands, it's not unusual to have a little adjustment period, that's all. All right, so we've got two sets of minutes with the, any other changes, additions, et cetera, deletions?
Nothing for me.
Okay.
With your amendment.
Yeah, with this, the addition of my name as an amendment, please. Madam Clerk?
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the meeting minutes of November 5th and November 19th, 2018 as amended.
Second.
Okay, the motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed. Boy, we got a good 20 minutes before our next topic. You want to go through the interim town administrator topics, Anthony?
Can I just jump in real
Yeah.
quick? Just, you mentioned Comcast earlier, I meant to jump on that.
Yeah.
I think it was 2 years ago, Paul, when we asked for National Grid to come in.
Right.
And have a conversation with
Yep.
us. And so we just brought up some of the utilities. We've had some conversation, presentation from LCTV. I'd kind of like invite them in and let them kind of
Explain themselves.
Invite is a,
Explain yourself.
get some explaining to do.
Yeah, that's right, National Grid, I mean, to their credit,
responsive to
they sent out the sacrificial lamb to take the beating, and that was fine. He knew his
and
job.
wasn't it just a couple days after you got done knocking them around that they reduced their rates
Yes,
across the
oh, you
Commonwealth?
remember that? Oh, yes, that's true.
See, don't forget that part.
That's right, see,
And you did take credit for that, I remember. He was sitting right over here.
just a coincidence, you know.
Mike wasn't on that.
Right. Thank you for remembering, Jay.
Make sure that gets in the minutes.
Yeah, right. Okay, but that's a great suggestion, especially, maybe we should run it by Alan to see if there's any reason we don't want to talk to him until, maybe we want to hear what comes out of Washington on the wasn't it the FCC that was going to rule? I mean, I don't care either way, but if there's a reason to wait until they, if there's a ruling, maybe we want to have them in after to see how they're responding to that,
Sure.
Yeah, next meeting, we plan on LCTV.
It'll be mid-January anyway, right?
Yeah, and LCTV is gonna, they want to come in, I think, next meeting to discuss some of the 5G changes, what's going on, kind of goes
What does that
on.
mean?
Yeah, it's, from what I understand, from listening to Kirby, it's some of the players like Amazon are getting into it, so there'd be these wireless components on a lot of the poles.
Right.
So I know that, we're going to discuss it tomorrow at the staff meeting with Littleton Light, because obviously it's their polls. So we're going to get briefed on it tomorrow, but it's something that I think that the board should probably get an update on at the next meeting. So that is our plan.
And it's supposed to, my understanding is it's supposed to supplant large towers with a larger number of more decentralized,
Right.
yeah.
Is that right?
hotspots.
Yeah.
But, I mean, to the extent that we can charge the utility rent for putting them on our poles instead of, a cell tower fund,
Right.
great.
Well, Nick had some concerns, and we were going to have a discussion about it tomorrow, and then have further discussions. I don't think it's as, it's.
As you hear, the board's
seems
very
to be a little
interested
bit,
in an
yeah.
update on it.
Yeah, it's a little complicated, so we're going to get an update.
Does that mean you have to dumb it down for us, Anthony?
No, not at all, Mr. Chairman, not at all. But we do plan on bringing it to you on December 17th.
Okay. All right, well, I think we have time here for you to at least get started on your items, number 7, interim town administrator. If we
Sure.
have to interrupt that to go back to any scheduled meetings with other bodies, we'll do that.
Okay. So, in the past, the annual license renewals was done over 2 meetings in December. So, which became difficult because it was a lot of work for our staff, which is only one, Diane Dickerson, to really deal with during the September and the holiday season. So what we wanted to do is we got the notices out to businesses early. I mean, we've been working with them on all license, the alcohol beverage, the automobile buy-sell exchange, the amusement devices, entertainment, lodging houses, and secondhand items. So with that, we have gone out, and the next chart, I know it's small, it's in your package, but I presented it this way, so you know that there's, one location could have a multitude of licenses, as opposed to, you might have heard something on an alcoholic beverage this week, and then on December 17th, you may have got the common vic. So it made sense to kind of package it together. So what we're asking the board to do tonight is to, what you'd be doing is approving these licenses, but it would be on contingent upon them submission of all required documents. So in the past, you voted, but it really wasn't, it was still contingent, we just never used that word in the motion. So what I did is I kind of stole it from Ian's motion, because it really is contingent upon them all doing that, because we did have some issues that we found in the license, and there's a memo in your packet, just some known issues, and Chief Wodzinski was going to be here. He's at training, if there was any questions, but he'll be here later. But Anthony's Coal Fire Pizza. So there's been an issue with that outdoor patio that they built. So they put, they were required to put sprinkler system out there. So what happened is they put a sprinkler head there, but they also added heat. So they didn't use the right sprinkler head system, so what happened was the heat set off the sprinkler in October. Luckily, nobody was out in the patio, but right now, the fire department has been really on them since October to get this resolved, and they've been getting the 2 weeks from that they were doing it. So we've been in contact with them, and it's kind of helped them move along and explain the importance of getting this resolved before December 31st. So we've been talking even with their corporate office, which they were very pleased that we reached out and are working with them, but they also know the importance of that they have to get this done. So, there would be always a chance that, the liquor license will expire on December 31st, their common vic, so we're working with the business so that doesn't happen. But that was one of the issues. Another issue that we found, Miller Automotive, we've spoke to him, he's a little behind on the FY18 taxes. He will have that paid up before, and he understands that he has to do that in order for that license to be renewed before we issue the certificate. Now, other things that we found, that, through a little housekeeping, O'Neill Cinemas, we believe that they're going to have to change their manager from Mr. O'Neill to the son who's really managing that, so that's a little housekeep item that we'll clean up with him in January. VFW, we're recommending to them that they submit their annual entertainment, because last year they did have live music, so we want to get them ahead of the game.
And your letter that did go out, just to confirm, I know you told me, but it did make various license holders aware that if they do have entertainment, they should
That
get a
they
license.
should, yes. We did send another a letter with the license form, yes. One thing that we identified is that the Marriott did not have a lodging license, so they have a common vic, they have an alcohol beverage, but there's no lodging license, so we'll work with them to make sure they're in compliance. But another thing that we identified too is in our fee, and the only one we have right now is Littleton Inn, and it's like $100. But when you look at other communities like Cambridge, I think that their fee might be $100 plus $25 per room for a hotel. So not sure that we can do that based on the renewal, but it's something I think the board should talk about and look at.
Future fee schedules.
Future fee
changes.
schedules, and on looking at that, because some of the fees are really, really low in relative to the work that Diane puts into it, because fees were supposed to at least be able to recover the cost of the labor in that fee. So that's another thing that we're recommending for the board to review later. Speaking of Littleton Inn too, It's a bed and breakfast, they serve breakfast, and they didn't have a common vic license. She happened to walk in the office, so I introduced myself to the owner, and we had a conversation, and she was very pleasant and understood, and realizes that I'll be getting back in touch with her in January to just make sure that we get that common vic for them. It's a $25 license. And then we're also looking at, too, is,
I think there's a Board of Health inspection involved too with that, isn't there?
yeah, so, and that's the last thing, is part of the Board of Health inspections, we're cross-referencing to make sure that those places that are being inspected by the Board of Health have a common vic, and there's some questions there. So we're going to try to really reconcile and wrap this up and clean it up right now. Some of them has been going on for, like the Marriott's been going on for a couple of years, so we want to just bring everybody into compliance. So with that, I lost my,
How
So,
about,
yeah, can I ask a question here? So, now that we've gone through those, can you go back to your original explanation of what you're proposing in terms of administrative structure here? Because I think it'll make more sense now.
sure, because we have some of those establishments that still have, like Anthony's, that has to get their sprinkler system inspected by the fire department and the building department, that we're asking the board to give you a contingent vote to approve them, but we'll issue their license once they completely satisfy all the requirements.
My- oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, finish your thought.
I was going to say, I'm good with that for the administrative components. As far as licensees who owe back taxes and licensees who are not meeting the safety requirements, I'm not comfortable approving that until we, a five-member board, get confirmation.
Well, part of the issue is the ABCC wants, and the reason why Keith always brought those first, which is because the ABCC wants those renewals in process. We're not going to issue the certificate until they're fully in compliance with all our requirements. So this is kind of a step that the ABCC asks us to take.
but if, say for instance, I hear your point, Chief, but if we were okay with them, if they met the fire, like the case of Anthony's, if it met the fire chief's code, and if the taxes get paid up on the 18th in our last meeting, and about the 17th, so, you know,
Right, matter of fact,
meet again to, you know, or voted contingent on their,
What I want is them to pay their taxes.
yeah, I know, but if they don't, they're not gonna get their license.
right, we're not going to issue their license until it's done, and then we would bring
And
it
then by
back to the
January
board.
1st, they would not be able to continue their activity.
That's right. We'd be notifying the board that we have an issue. I feel really comfortable in dealing with everybody that I don't see that happening. But to the chairman's point, with Anthony's, it's actually December 17th is when the vendor's due to be in to finish that job with the sprinklers. So you're right. So by the time, that the next selectmen meeting is December 17th, we really couldn't wait. That's why we're asking for the contingent upon submission of all required documents, fees, payments of municipal charges. In the past, you wouldn't have seen that. You would have just been asked to vote on it. You may not have even known that there was an issue. So I'm trying to, this time, be a little bit more transparent, make you full aware of the issues, and that we're on top of it, and that I really feel comfortable that we'll get that done.
If I may,
Yep,
Mr. Chair.
sure.
With respect to Anthony's, is there a written list? Was the notification to corporate done in writing to them to tell them about the deficiencies in the system? And how
All
they
the
needed to
local
come into
licenses are
compliance?
sent to the local establishments. So it would be up to Anthony's at the point to work with their corporate office, because their corporate office has a director who's in charge of all the licensing and permitting. So as an example, last year, their corporate office called us up because they never got a copy of their license from the local store. So they came to us and said, hey, did you guys do it? And we said, yeah, we did it. And this,
But as far as like the fire
Diane?
department's issues with them, that's in writing in a
Yeah,
letter from the fire chief to the?
Right, because you said Diane informed their corporate office. How was that notification done? Is there something in writing that says why they're not in compliance? Was it a written notification from either the Littleton Fire Department?
or the
the
building
town of
department.
Littleton?
Yeah,
As opposed to just a phone call to somebody on the other end of the phone.
Chief Wodzinski and Deputy Clancy have been working with Anthony on their notification. I don't know if it was in what they have in writing, if they issue a potential stop.
Yeah, I've got
order.
a suggestion. How about, since we have,
No,
Okay.
so how did Diane inform them? Did she call them? I guess that's a piece I'm confused about. If the fire department was already working with Anthony's.
So they weren't having much success. The building department nor the fire department was having much success with Anthony's, and they were getting the runaround, and they were really uncomfortable with recommending that they be okay. And so we got involved and notified the corporate office that the woman that called us last year from the licensing to let her know that this is the issue, because the fire departments and Roland have been asking them and saying, you have to get it done. He says, well, yeah, we're working on it, but it's been going on. So they were really concerned, and that's when we felt the need to call corporate office to let them be aware, which they weren't aware, and which they were very pleased that we contacted them. Matter of fact, the CEO from Anthony's Coal Fire Pizza would like to speak to me to thank me for the efforts that we've gone to let them know that there was a potential problem with one of their franchises. So
it doesn't speak wonderful about the management that
Well,
we
that's-
issue the license
right.
to. though,
Right.
you know. How about this as a thought, now to follow up on Chase's point? Since we do meet again on the 17th, how about we vote, on the contingency basis for everything but those two issues, and let them know that they better resolve it by the 17th, which is our next meeting and last opportunity in this calendar year. Otherwise, if they don't, then they can wait till the middle of January and be closed for two weeks until we meet in January.
And I would say there, what I'm looking for is, I understand that maybe the work happens on the 17th, and maybe they don't get the final blessing until after that. But I want to know when I vote on this on the 17th, that substantive efforts have been made.
And with the
To-
recommendation
to
from
reach
the
compliance.
fire chief, where it stands as far as his satisfaction. Is
sir-
that all right, to hold out these two to, if they want to get it done, then they got to get it done by the 17th, otherwise, see you next year.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I like the idea of that, but that's going one step too far. What happens if they do get it resolved on the 21st? I don't want to put them out of business for 2 weeks and.
Well, then they'll let us
take the
know by the
contingent vote.
17th.
We take the contingent vote then.
We could do that on the
We would still
17th.
take- Yeah, I mean, I would still, I'm not interested in shutting them down. What I want to do is make it clear that this is
Oh,
unacceptable.
I understand where you're coming from. I'm just saying, if they do get it done, I just want to make sure that if they get it done.
We have another chance to address it on the 17th, but they'll hear tomorrow that they didn't get approved when everyone else did, and hopefully they'll act a little
Right,
quicker.
and there's not even yet in place an administrative mechanism to get it
Right.
done. They need to keep moving forward. I'm happy to entertain on the 17th. Yeah, they've made substantive steps. Okay, we'll give the administrative approval to go forward if they do in fact complete it. But what I'm hearing right now is that they've had some issues moving forward. So my interest is frankly sending a bit of a message.
I'm hopeful, yeah, I'm hopeful if they hear tomorrow morning that everyone else can approve and you didn't, then and we're meeting on the 17th, get it resolved by then, that message will hopefully have its effect.
Well, you can always vote if you wanted the motion here, and you're not signing anything until after the 17th, so therefore the licenses don't have the selectmen's signatures.
Well,
Just another
all right,
option.
but I think the idea that I personally support is vote, I don't mind voting contingency, all the rest of them, leave those two out, and we'll deal with them on the 17th. And you can notify them accordingly. I just want to clarify too, Anthony, this topic didn't come up, but those licensees to which we issued certain probationary conditions last summer, that stays on the license until they are resolved. Remember the liquor license issues from last summer?
Those issues would stay with the establishment, yes, with the license.
Okay, but the license will reflect that, or the letter, I just don't want it to be
Yep.
forgotten,
Yeah.
right, yeah,
Until it expires.
right.
The only question I have is, we historically get
Yeah.
input from the police, the fire, the building inspector, board of health.
That's true.
any-
Well,
any
Chief
appropriate
Wodzinski's
parties.
supposed to be doing,
I'm not talking about just him, just in general, anytime we do any kind of license review, we get input from all the departments.
Have
So-
you already been doing that? Is
yeah,
that
there
what you're
should have
telling
been,
us?
there should be a notice in your packet from the police and fire. and Building Department.
I don't see those.
Did it not make it in the packet?
No, we just have the charts and then the letter.
Chief?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, in regards to that letter that you're gonna draft to Anthony's, in regards to the license, I feel comfortable having one of our alcohol agents actually hand serve that letter to them and do the explanation as to what's going on with it. I think that would send the message pretty
Forcefully.
straightforward to them, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And listen, they've been good partners with us.
Right.
Absolutely.
But we can't have a substantive safety issue either.
Especially if, as we're hearing secondhand, they're not necessarily conveying it to corporate. That's not a comforting thought, but anyway, we will, if you could scare up those letters for us to see on the 17th.
I mean, the rubber meets the road, where
Right.
our department heads are
Yeah.
relying on their staff to do the reviews, to inform us.
Right.
And that's typically, we make those determinations based upon their.
But it sounds like the reviews that you were looking for did occur, and the memos to back that up just didn't happen to make our packet, right?
Yes,
Anthony?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
The only other question I have
Yeah.
is between the letter that we have in our packet and the motion vary very slightly. One says applicable forms, fees, and satisfactory inspections. The other one says all required documents, fees, and payments of municipal charges. I want to make sure that the motion doesn't say satisfactory inspections. I'd like to try to edit that to make sure that we encompass all of that.
Okay, can you monkey around with the language there, Anthony, and?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Is it worth adding in the language that any probationary terms apply, or is that,
Carry forward
Yeah.
with any approvals.
yeah,
I think that makes sense.
might as well reiterate it?
Yeah.
Right, just in case there's some idiosyncrasy.
Yeah, you don't want them coming back and say, hey, you voted this license on, December 1st, and it's not mentioned there,
Yeah.
I think they were both due to, the ones that we issued them to were due to run out sometime in the spring or something, or is that right? We have
I don't remember the
Three.
specifics.
3 people that were were violations, yeah. Anthony's was one of them, Marriott was one of them, and the Pub at the Common.
Masala Bay.
Oh, Masala Bay, right,
Masala
right,
Bay.
that's right. Pub at the Common, too,
Pub at
right?
the Common,
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
I know this because I went in the week afterwards and noticed a substantive difference.
And how you were treated and how they behaved.
I tried to order a beer for someone who was not yet there and
Okay.
was declined service for that
You're
individual.
doing a little secret agent work.
Yeah, right.
Black Ops.
Yeah.
For the space needs.
I mean, I'm happy to do that kind of work. Anytime you need help, chief, you just let me know.
Deputized. Required volunteer work.
Required volunteer work.
I'm there too.
Okay, Ron.
Check that one.
All right. Ba, 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 ba.
And
You want to put
how about
municipal?
satisfactory in front of inspections? Satisfactory inspections?
That's right. We were inspected. What do you want?
Yeah. We did inspection. And then I think, do you want to have a subsequent language? saying
Yeah,
that-
all licenses subject to probationary terms as previously determined by the Board of Selectmen.
Levied.
Levied, whatever sounds like the toughest language.
I like levy.
Okay. Well, Cindy, you gonna read all that?
Chase is on it.
Oh, yeah.
I was volunteering when I was just tweaking a little bit. Now, I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the annual renewal of all licenses with the exception of, oh, Anthony.
Oh,
We start now?
not now.
With the exception of Anthony's Coal Fired Pizza and Miller Automotive as printed in the meeting notice addendum for calendar year 2019, contingent upon submission of all required documents, fees, and payments of municipal charges and satisfactory inspections. All licenses subject to probationary terms as levied by the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, why don't we return to our agenda for the 7:10 public input, members' updates. Members of the public, anything to bring up to us that's not already covered by the agenda?
Just do your job, will you?
Same to you. Okay.
Who said that?
You're right. All right, Mr. Zeldin.
He didn't identify himself.
Well, I think everybody in town would recognize that voice.
Mike Selden, Low Ann Street. I suspect this is a topic that will come up anyway sooner or later, but just to draw your attention to it. The establishment of a housing trust in Littleton is a very important step. It's another sign that Littleton is maturing along a totally different line than before. And I hope that the establishment of this trust and the policies that's set by it are up to the challenges that will face the town both in the near and midterm. I can't think of anything more important for the future of the town to make sure that the policies and their implementation of something along the lines of housing trust, the importance of housing diversification of it that the town wants, and the way we use land demands very professional and very, shall we say, very focused work and thought on our part.
All right.
Trying to encourage that.
Okay, well, we are represented by one of our best on that trust, so whenever you have an update for us, whether it's tonight or down the road, Cindy, I'm sure you'll let us know. I know the committee has met. Bart, you're on it as well, right? Yeah, right. Good, glad to see it off the ground, and
Yeah.
look forward to you guys engaging in something meaningful and concrete. Okay, thank you. All right. Member updates. Ms. Napoli.
Certainly. So I have a few things to share this evening. I just want to remind everybody that there is a support group that Nicole Lorenzen has started through Elder and Human Services for anyone dealing with addiction, either personally with a family member. It meets actually tomorrow night. It meets the first Tuesday of every month. And if anyone would like to attend that support group, they can call Nicole at 978-540-2475. She's worked really hard to get this off the ground, and I think it would be a great benefit to a lot of people in our community, so I hope people will take advantage of that.
Cindy, is the location,
It's-
call Nicole to get the location because it's,
The location's here.
Okay.
It's up at the COA. I'm not sure which room.
223.
The other thing I wanted to talk about, actually two things. I attended the Veterans Breakfast last week, which was wonderful. It was first time I've actually made it to the Veterans Breakfast, which was great. Members of Littleton Police Department were there, the fire department were there, cooking breakfast for everyone. But the one thing that really I truly enjoyed was the fact that the newest members of the Littleton Police Department were there and being personally introduced to the veterans in the room. I thought that was really important, and to have them make that connection with them and get to know them. So I appreciated Chief Kennard seeing that. I think that was a wonderful, wonderful thing to have happen. The other thing that we're doing is, the Veterans Corner project is moving forward wonderfully. One of the things that I wanted to mention to the board to make sure that they know is we're selling patriotic banners that we're going to hang from the electric poles along Great Road and King Street, starting from May 1st and through the end of November.
Sorry,
2019.
some hanging out there that look pretty, well, all the patriotic ones. I hope.
Patriotic ones. So that's a sample of one that we're selling.
Anybody
that
recognize
is,
that guy?
Oh, yeah.
That's,
It's not the guy you think it is.
it's Gary Wilson's son,
Son,
Michael. So he's our prototype. So I just wanted to mention that to people if they want. There's supposed to be a link coming up on the town website that will direct you to the sites where you can order a banner, either for a friend or a family member, or if you want to sponsor a veteran who might not have a family member or friend to get them a banner. That would be wonderful, and all the proceeds are going to benefit the Veterans Corner. So I just wanted to mention that. And then as far as the Housing Trust, we had a wonderful summit last week that Maren put together with a representative from the Mass Housing Partnership. She did an incredible presentation to the members of the Board of Trustees The Littleton Housing Authority was there. It was really very, very helpful to us, and it gave us a lot of information, and it also gave us a lot of sort of a playbook in some respects about where we should begin and how we should move forward and what options there are to us for housing. So I followed up with Bartlett a little bit afterwards, and we're both really excited as our members of the community, the committee, to get working on this. We're looking forward to our next meeting, and we appreciate Maren taking the lead and bringing us this information, which is going to prove really helpful. And I think, the final thing I just want to mention is if anyone wants to donate super sandwiches to the Council on Aging, they can do so. This program is on running, but I think a lot of times people forget that they can do that. They do a special luncheon on Thursdays at the COA. So if anyone would like to make sandwiches and soup for the seniors, and they can contact Gail at the senior diner at gail.dalton@aol.com and sign up to do that. And that's it.
Terrific, thank you.
Soup or sandwiches, not
Both.
super sandwiches.
Soup.
That's what I was hearing.
And sandwiches.
Okay.
Yes.
Selectman Gerbic.
Sure. Just one thing, I wanted to note the work of the Littleton Community Farm. I got their annual report in my email, and I think one sort of really compelling component of it is the amount of food that they've donated over the last year. 11 shares, 6,000 pounds of produce donated to four food banks in the area, principally loaves and fishes. And so their connection, their ability to connect both the whole community to our sort of agricultural roots, as well as serve a very substantial need in our community, goes noted, particularly on a shoestring budget that they do it with, and it's greatly appreciated.
Terrific. All right, Selectman DeCoste.
Just to follow up on Chase's community farm, they just named, I can't think of his last name, Christopher, get his last name?
Yep, I do.
A new president of the community farm. So welcome to Chris. He was at the bazaar, and
Growlert, Chris Growlert.
an Acton guy, grew up working at Idlewild, like working the fields of Idlewild when there were fields in it.
When you work there, you work.
Yeah, right. So just welcome to him. I know that he had me introduce him to John Borowski to see if he could do some kind of a veteran interaction with the farms. So if he can just kind of get people working on the land or whatever, just if vets need some solace or what have you. So it was nice to meet him. And the bazaar was last Saturday, huge success. It's a great community event, and just welcome you. Thank you very much to everybody that is involved with it. Nancy Morrison's been instrumental, and Millie, and there's so many that you could thank. I'd leave names out if I tried to name them all, but it's a great sense of community, and it's just great to go to that and run into everybody and see everybody and get caught up. The other thing I want to do is kind of a housekeeping thing, just had some people give me some feedback about when we take a vote, oftentimes people don't know who made the motion or who seconded the motion. So two things I thought we might be able to do is either the chairman can say, motion made by Mr. Gerbic, seconded by Mr. Knox.
Okay.
Or the town administrator can send a summary out to whoever the scribe is going to, if it's Jen Gibbons, if it's going to be Diane, whoever that's going to be, just give them a summary of the motions that were taken and who made them and who seconded them.
Yeah, that should be clear in the minutes anyway.
It wasn't, some of the folks that I've talked to that have done the work
Okay.
program, the tax work-off program, weren't able to always make out which one of us was making the motion or seconding the motion.
Well, if I can remember, I will repeat that information in the motion.
Maybe we do it both ways, and Anthony can give a summary of
Maybe
that.
a little placard that says second.
Flashcards.
If I forget that, remind me, but I'll try going forward to repeat who the motion is made and seconded by. That's good information, especially if the public's keeping track and can't hear it, then we're here to serve. Right, okay. Anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, Selectman Knox?
I just want to mention the tree lighting that was yesterday. I want to thank the Rotary for putting all that time and the effort into it, the light department, the highway department, fire and police. It was an outstanding event. It's great to see little faces light up when you see Santa coming in the fire truck, and my granddaughter, JoJo being one. And it's fun to see the kids get all excited, run up to the stage to see Santa. And in the case of JoJo would get all up there and get scared and wouldn't talk. And when I went to leave today, what she said to me goes, "No Santa?" It was a great job by the Rotary. I want to thank you.
I was there, and that's my item as well. I was there with the Joe at the tree lighting, and it was, a lot of the town boards make it, town departments rather, make it happen, and the Rotary organizes it. And I recognized as well at the ceremony, and I'll recognize them here too, is the girls cross-country team, which won the state championship, and they and their coach, Mark Saucier, were present, and we congratulate them for continuing to represent the town well.
Absolutely.
We
Okay.
appreciate also your presence. I think you guys doing a good job.
You have not been recognized by the chair.
My name is Gino, and you know that I love you guys, right?
Well, so you say, yeah.
Actions speak
Rotary
louder
is
words.
very proud to do that every year,
Right. All right,
and thank you for coming.
thank you. Okay, moving right along. Anthony, we have a vacancy we need to advertise relative to the resignation of the Park and Rec Commission?
Yes, so there's a few things here. We have, we received notification from the remaining members of the Park and Rec that they have a vacancy which was created by the resignation of Michael Quarry on November 12th. What we do in return now, the Board of Selectmen, Paul signs a letter as the chairman to the remaining members, letting them know that we will planning to fill that, give them notice that we plan on having a joint meeting with them, and the date that we have for that is January 14th at 7 o'clock. The vacancy will be filled jointly until the May of 2019 annual town election. The third thing is we invite qualified registered voters. How we do that is two ways. We'll be placing a public notice into the newspaper tomorrow, as well as advertising on our website and also posting it on the bulletin board with the town clerk.
And word of mouth is welcome too.
Word of mouth is always welcome.
Okay, board members have any questions or comments on that, or pretty straightforward? Okay, all right. Motion?
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 11, to receive the notice thereunder given by the remaining members of the Park and Recreation Commission of the vacancy on said board created by the resignation of Michael Crory, effective November 12, 2018. And further, to give notice to said remaining members that the Board of Selectmen shall convene a joint meeting with the intent to fill said vacancy through May 2019 annual town election by joint appointment to be made on Monday, January 14th, 2019 at 7 o'clock p.m. And further, to invite qualified registered voters of the town of Littleton to apply for said appointment and to be interviewed at said joint meeting.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made by Selectman Napoli, seconded by Selectman DeCoste.
And I got
Any-
it, I got your back up there.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. It worked the first time.
Look at that.
All right. We are just a couple minutes away from the posted meeting time for the Housing Authority and the Selectmen. You folks, are you in session yet? Did you vote to open your meeting?
The chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Declare your, want to declare your meeting open so that we can,
You want to declare the meeting open?
Yes, open the meeting.
Yes, please, is that what
Okay.
you want? Yeah.
that's all, that's all. Okay. So again, in terms of, I'll let Anthony keep doing his
Sure,
job. You can
sure.
introduce us to the subject, remind us why we're here.
Sure, we had a the board had a vacancy with the resignation. The director, Lisa Larrabee, sent out a letter to all the tenants asking for a tenant representative to the board. She was able to get somebody, Sonia Lodge, to submit a letter of interest, which we notified the Housing Authority Board a week ago, which was required by law, to let them know of tonight's meeting, that this would be an opportunity to fill that position jointly with the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, great. And this is a joint meeting, and interesting, I'm not quite sure of the legality on this. Chuck sits on both boards. I don't know, I think he just gets one vote, though.
And one vote.
Yeah, just one vote, all right.
You can run out there and
You can sit with whatever group you want to sit with, but, so there are 5 of us and 3 other members of the,
Empty chair for him.
yes, that's one possibility. So 8, so it would take a vote of 5 to confirm. Not a big issue since we only have one candidate. I'll ask the Housing Authority, you folks did the recruiting. Anybody want to speak on behalf of the Housing Authority, or just, we'll have Sonia speak for herself?
Do you want to say a few words now?
Few words.
Well, maybe just in terms of introducing yourself to the town, if you could just tell us who you are, why you're interested, and there's no suspense here, you're gonna get appointed, but we like to know who we're gonna be working with.
Who I am. Oh, gosh. Tell them who you are. Who I am. Who am I? I don't know who I am. You know who I am? Oh, okay. Sonia Lodge. Longtime Littleton resident. My 4 children, I do have 4 children, don't I? 4 children have all graduated from the high school here some time ago. Can't give away my age. I have an old background of having worked for Brookline Housing Authority. And so I kind of bring a little of that to the table. So I guess I have a little teeny tiny,
Experience.
a little bit, just a little.
And you're a resident at Pine Tree Park?
I'm a resident of Pine Tree Park
Right.
now, and so I hope to offer a little something,
Good.
just a little
So
something.
you're volunteering, in other words. Nobody asked you to say, I'd like to write. You-
Gina.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, yeah.
That's what we need to know.
Where's that
You would
gavel?
need them-
Yeah.
there we go.
I haven't had to use a gavel once this year, Gino. Don't be the first, you know?
No, so I'm here and I'm happy to help. It's another way to be part of the town.
Yeah, well, it's important that we, and it's a legal requirement now that we have a tenant representative of the board, and I think it's great that you, not only that, but someone who has a background in the town prior to that and has worked at a housing authority, all pluses, so, yeah, so we welcome you very much. I'll open it up for, I think you folks, have you had a chance to talk with Sonia already? All right, then I'll ask our board members up here, any questions, comments for Sonia?
No, just thank you for coming forward and volunteering.
Great, thank you so much for participating. It's what it takes.
You want my comment?
No,
Mr. Chairman?
no, I don't, thank you.
In my first meeting last month, Sonia was present and had some good insights, so I look forward to working together with her.
Great.
So.
Selectman Knox?
Thank you.
All right, Gino?
The only thing, because we love you, okay? Only thing we'd like to have is the selectmen to, well, not donate, but the question is, we'd like to have more apartment for the seniors. because they have
Okay,
no place
all
to
right,
go.
that's,
And you know more than
yes,
I do.
thank you, but that's not the topic before the board here. We're looking for, I think we're looking for a motion, which I would prefer it come from a member of the Housing Authority Board. Any of you want to make a motion on the nomination? We have a,
Motion.
we got to read it up here.
Okay, without glasses, okay. Move, and the Board of Selectmen and the remaining members of the Littleton Housing Authority vote pursuant to NGLC 41 S11, I think,
Yep,
correct me if I'm wrong, and C 12
121B,
121B. Thank you.
Subs-
SS 8, whatever, BA.
5-5A.
That's 5 and 5A, but, you know,
Bigger, so I
you're
can
in the
see.
ballpark, Gino, that's, you know.
To appoint, to appoint the Littleton Housing Authority tenant.
And her name?
Vacancy.
Wait a minute, no, we got to put the name in there.
Okay.
Sonia Lodge.
Sonia Lodge, thank you.
Sonia Lodge. Okay, to the Housing Authority Board for the term expire May 2020, or until a new member or qualified under regulation issued by the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development,
The position went till
DHCD,
2020.
whichever come first.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made by Gino Fratallone, Housing Authority member Gino Fratallone, and seconded by Housing Authority member Bartlett Harvey. Any further discussion? Then does this have to be a roll call vote?
No,
Probably not.
no.
No. Okay, all right, then, those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Sonia, welcome aboard.
Thank you so
unanimous.
much. Thank Thank you.
Unanimous, yeah.
She has to go to Diana.
Yeah, you have to go to the town clerk, if you're not aware, you gotta get sworn in and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I'm sure Millie will tell you what needs to be done. Great.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
With this next item 6, the
Yeah.
Town Administrator Selection Committee update, if I can just excuse myself, being a candidate, I think it'd be better for me to.
Okay, everyone, thank you for your, God bless you, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll text you then when we'll, okay.
Oh, congratulations, nice to meet you.
If you folks didn't hear, Anthony is gonna be leaving the meeting since he's a candidate for the task committee, so we wanted to step out.
I know.
Text him to come back in.
I love you, man.
I love you too, Gino.
You,
You're the lucky one.
I duck him across the street every time I see him.
here for another 30 years, and I was-
All right, we have to move on to the other agenda item, dear Gina, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yes.
I just got a text from my son Jonathan, he's in Pittsburgh, he's out to eat.
Yes?
And the Bruins just come in to eat in the same restaurant. so-
Oh, is that right? Will they play in Pittsburgh tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh,
Must be.
okay.
Tell Marcia.
If you're gonna carry on conversations, Gino, please, and other folks, take them out in the hallway, folks.
You want the gavel?
All right, please. Yeah, carry conversations outside, please, thank you. Okay. Obviously, the Town Administrative Selection Committee has been very busy, and I think we had a last update at our last meeting, and our representative and the chairman of the committee by Town Bylaw, Chase Gerbig, is here to give us another update, at which time we'll also invite discussion from board members on related topics. So Chase, what's the update?
So the nature of the process right now is that I can give you guys the high-level understanding of where we're at, what we're doing, what the schedule looks like. Of course, in order to protect our applicants' confidentiality, I can't give you details on who the specific applicants are. We had 9 applicants that we shortlisted for interviews. We ended up interviewing 7 of those applicants. 1 in the intervening time accepted another position, which says to me that we had a pretty deep, robust applicant pool. Another applicant decided that, broadly speaking, municipal administration wasn't where he wanted to go and decided to withdraw his application. So,
You'd think they would have thought about
interested
that a
in
little
knowing how that evolved, but alas, I don't think we were the ones to push him over the edge. And so we ended up interviewing
Wilson guy.
7 applicants, yeah. 7 applicants between last Wednesday and last Saturday. We are currently in the process of deciding what we will decide next Wednesday is the course forward with those 7 applicants. We essentially have 2 choices in front of us. One is how many candidates do we want to advance? And do we want to do an assessment center? So let's say hypothetically we had 3 candidates. There was a very obvious divide between candidate 3 and 4 hypothetically. In that scenario, we might elect as the task to simply recommend those 3 out of the task for the Board of Selectmen to consider. I would say if we had more than that, we would probably pursue an assessment center and use that as the criteria against which a component of the criteria that we would use to determine who we recommend to the Board of Selectmen. That said, a lot of that's my thought, not necessarily the task's thought. We're meeting on Wednesday to hash that out. The current timeframe is that we're actually a week ahead of schedule, because we felt like there was a pretty obvious divide between the candidates we wanted to interview and those we didn't. And so we were able to get those interviews done a week earlier than we anticipated, which puts us in a good position to ultimately make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, ideally in the month of December, for the Board of Selectmen to take up come January. One of the places that we would like input from the Board of Selectmen is the assessment center, and you guys understand that I'm using assessment center as our,
Very broad.
our loose, right, deterministic approach, right? We don't know exactly how it's going to shake out. We have yet to form that assessment center. But that's precisely where I would invite the members of the Board of Selectmen to either send me personally or to send the task as a whole, your thoughts on what you would like that assessment center to look like. You know, certainly we have a memo from the Board of Selectmen that sort of crystallizes what the Board of Selectmen are looking at or looking for in the candidate, but to the extent that you want to provide individual feedback on, hey, I'd really like to see you go deeper into this topic during the assessment center, we'd be very interested in knowing that information. Doesn't mean we'll necessarily be able to work it in, but if we're not working something in, we want to be deliberate about that rather than just glossing over something.
Do you know now, bare bones, what it might look like, the center, just to give it, help my mind a little bit in terms of thinking of what kind of, whether it already addresses things that I would hope it would or not, rather than just saying assessment center and big question mark and then answer with.
To be honest, the answer right now is no.
Are there models that you've looked at that, you know, you're?
What we elected to do, by the next time we meet, I will have a much clearer answer to that. What we elected to do was defer all of those decisions until we had reviewed the applicant pool, until we had interviewed them, because we wanted to make sure that the assessment center was really essentially designed to interrogate the strengths and weaknesses of the candidates in front of us. And so if they were all very clearly strong on one thing, maybe it's worth digging deep into that, or maybe it's worth not addressing that at all. And so we haven't even formulated a structure yet. And Fred Ryan is going to be, to the extent that we, the task, or frankly, the Board of Selectmen, if we were to say, here, Board of Selectmen, here are your three candidates, it would still very much be within the Board of Selectmen's prerogative to utilize Fred Ryan's services, and Fred would be the one to run the assessment center. To do that.
Which I would assume would be vastly different than the assessment center that we had for the police chief search, which would all likely.
At a minimum,
be
in content, it
administrative.
would be different. Now, in terms of structure and how it might be built, you know, some elements may be consistent there. You know, I've used this example before, principally because I don't think it's something that we're going to utilize and would prefer not to broadcast our better ideas. But one thing might be to do a press release kind of scenario. You know, you're given 5 minutes to digest some information. Now we want to see your ability to do public speaking. And that was similar to something that happened during the police chief process. And could be, I would actually advocate against that one. I don't think it tells us a lot in this scenario, but we would be looking at good things there and incorporating other elements that may be relevant.
And I know one issue that's come up in, you know, from the board's input earlier is the level where we were interviewed by Fred Bryan's associate individually led to a collective synopsis and wasn't universal satisfaction with that as to whether or not every, you know, members' views, opinions were conveyed in there. I'm guessing that you're asking for individual input that could supplement that? Is that?
That could supplement that, yeah, and in particular, if an individual member's interests are exploring or solidifying our understanding of a candidate's capabilities in this particular area, maybe it's a personality trait, maybe it's a leadership style, maybe it's really sort of within the context of an assessment center, everything's on the table, really.
Writing.
Yeah, exactly, writing, you know, so understanding from an individual members where you would really like to see it focused. And again, I'm making absolutely zero promises that those things will make it in, but if they don't make it in, those things will have not made it in for a very deliberate reason that I would be happy to talk to you. I'm going to guess if the.
Yeah, I guess just to underscore the point I was just making is that there's a natural, I think, inclination to make it, to find a consensus, where there may not necessarily be. You might have 5, or, to the extent it included other department head input, many different
Absolutely.
opinions that aren't not gonna easily find their way into a consensus, so.
Which is why I'm being very clear that I want to know what you want. I'm not
Right.
promising that I'm going
Right.
to be able to make sure it's incorporated. But at least if I know, then I can do
Right.
my best.
Okay, I don't wanna keep others out of the discussion.
Right.
Cindy?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up the memo that was given to the task. I really was disappointed that as a board, we didn't review that jointly before it was submitted to the search committee. I felt, reading it, I would have liked to have known where some of the thoughts that were incorporated in that memo had come from. And I think it was important for us as a board that we have a discussion about what we're looking for in the next town administrator. We haven't really done that. I know we all met with Rick White, and he came up with this summary, but I really wish that we had sat down and reviewed the summary together, and really kind of honed in on what was actually our thoughts and our vision for the next town administrator. So I don't know, I'm curious to know how much weight is being put on that summary by the search committee.
I would say it's being given equal weight with, there's really 3 elements that are essentially being given equal weight, to the extent that any single person, at this point, we're dealing with a handful of people, right?
Right.
We're looking at principally at that memo. We're looking at the the memo associated with the department heads in the interviews with that, and we're looking at what the job description actually entails, and then, of course, layered on top of all of that is the individual opinions of those of us on the task, right? But those 3 pieces, and in many ways, those pieces are congruous. There's certain places where the Board of Selectmen has articulated a unique vision. There are certain places where the department heads have articulated a unique vision. There's not so many places where the job description.
I got a question that, hopefully it won't, it shouldn't, because it's not, I'm not looking to hear what any of the responses were, but I'm curious to know, now that you conducted the interviews, what were the questions that were asked? Or not verbatim, but
Sure.
as a for instance.
What we did is, I'll say this, the questions were in some way a little bit of, they were constructed in a way to give the candidates enough rope to hang themselves if they wanted to. What we did is we asked essentially a leading question, or not a leading question, an initial question, and then a bunch of sub-questions. Like, here's ways that you might help us understand. So one question, the second question was, describe your management style. And then we had questions about, where has that worked well, or how would you implement that in the first 6 months? And part of what we were looking for there was their substantive answer to the question, but part of it was, are they smart enough to know when they've given an adequate answer and read the context to understand what we're trying to get out of them? And because the questions had sort of multiple layers to them, we actually gave the candidates the questions 15 minutes prior to their interview. We didn't want to give them to them. I wasn't looking for a dissertation from folks, but I did want them to know what was coming at them. So they arrived 15 minutes prior to their interview. We said, here are the questions, and take a look at them, formulate your thoughts. Very rarely in this business is someone asked for an immediate, off the top of your head, you've got to pontificate now kind of
Separately
response.
from task, they got the questions.
Separately from task for 15 minutes, just
Okay.
compose yourself in a room, read these, and give us your best thoughts. Some of the other questions were related to, actually, I don't think I have them in my email. One of the questions was specific to their interaction with school superintendents, because, obviously the school makes up half of our budget, and that relationship, that dynamic is tough to ferret out. We decided to ask that question. We didn't ask a question about police chiefs and fire chiefs, because we felt like that was asking a similar type of question. We only had a finite amount of time. Another question, one was just sort of an introductory question, tell us about yourself, but one of the subcomponents of that question was really, really interesting. It was, why are you the one for Littleton? And those candidates who were most capable of articulating their understanding of Littleton and where they fit into it, really, that was the first question we asked. And their ability to do that told us everything, frankly, almost everything we needed to know about them. Some of the other questions were, there were,
About paying the selectmen, was that question?
that actually didn't come up, interestingly.
Can you give me
We
opinions
got
on it?
paid once upon a time, Joe, remember those days? Yeah.
Wasn't much, but it was.
One question talked about integrity, honor, ethics, and some place where that has created a challenge for them, where,
Oh, it's a tough question.
Good question.
and different candidates interpreted that question in very, very different ways, which was, again, interesting because,
And
and
you
that,
get real defensive and say, hey, what are you getting at?
yeah. Actually, and the best candidates went, obviously, we did our homework with respect to Googling these folks. In fact, that's a big place where Rick White was helpful, is helping us understand, they've struggled here, they've struggled there and stuff. The best candidates went headlong at things in that question that we could Google about them. I mean, not everyone had, some candidates had newspaper articles that would make you wonder a little bit, was there an issue here? And those things came out in our interview, and they often came out in that particular question,
They brought them up.
They brought them up. The best candidates did not hide from,
Control the narrative.
I struggled with this, and here's why this was a struggle, and
Good question.
so that certainly doesn't get at all the questions.
No, but it is very helpful on the structure, and while you were talking, I had an opportunity to think of a suggestion to follow up on what Cindy was saying about the synopsis, and then our next opportunity, in thinking in terms of our next opportunity to address this at our meeting on the 17th. How about if we redistribute that, synopsis so that we can have it in our packet next time, so that when we're looking at you, basically at that point, we will have digested the interviews, you have your meeting Wednesday, you'll be looking to come in on the 17th, more or less to answer the how, whether and how to do the assessment center, and then kind of the handoff to the selectmen piece, right, of a pool?
We haven't set the timing on it, but we're actually looking at doing the assessment center prior to that.
Prior to the 17th?
No, if it was, because then you start to get into Christmas, and as soon as you do that, you
Right.
really draw things out. I would be hesitant to commit to doing it after our meeting on the 17th, but I could certainly bring that up at Task's meeting on Wednesday and see if we can move that a little bit past the meeting on the 17th.
If you guys
to
are meeting on the
incorporate this.
17th, or you're meeting on Wednesday, and you've requested us to have input individually,
And then the subsequent Wednesday, we would be formulating the.
but rather than working in silos, I want to be acknowledging what Cindy's concerns, that we haven't had a chance to, share something toward a consensus. How about if we set our own internal goal of having getting individual input into, well, I can't go to Anthony, I don't know, to you, I guess,
Yeah, so-
for Wednesday
and
morning.
that's an important
And then we
point
can
here.
share it with each of us so that we have a chance to, I don't know, we're not going to be meeting, I don't know.
Well, let me alter your timeline a little bit. This Wednesday is to review the interviewees, sort of give everybody a chance to, and decide tentatively, yes, assessment center, we have enough to go forward, or maybe not. If we have enough candidates to recommend to the Board of Selectmen, I don't think that's.
I can offer this much input right now, no matter whether you think you have enough candidates to hand on to the selectmen or not. I think, personally, I'd like to get the value of an assessment center, even if you already know who the final three
Well,
are.
and that actually comes up to my last point, is I don't yet know what the structure of the assessment center is going
Yeah.
to be, so on the 5th, we're going to be talking about candidates. On the 12th, we're going to be talking about the structure of the assessment center itself. So I don't need feedback from the Board of Selectmen this Wednesday. I would like it by the end of this week, let's say.
But what I'd like to have is an opportunity for each of us to see what everyone else's input was, so that we can
Right.
see whether there's commonalities, common threads, or whether you get people going in very divergent directions.
Right.
Is there a way we can, absent us meeting?
I would
we would need to
ask for either
agenda something.
Darren or Tom to opine there, just if we're gonna be sharing stuff back and forth.
Well, it doesn't, sharing, with deliberations, two different things, but that's kind of the point. Yeah, I don't know, we're gonna think about that, but I'd kind of like to satisfy both your request, get our input, and then also make sure there's an opportunity for the board members to be acting as a board, not just as 5 individuals.
Yep.
Let's try and figure that out.
Yeah.
Maybe Wednesday you
I mean, I
can
guess-
talk about it with your committee and see
Yeah.
how they want to.
Let's do that. Let me talk with them on Wednesday. I'm not sure that there isn't a path forward that doesn't involve us briefly meeting in an open meeting to exchange that.
Right, because it doesn't have, it doesn't have to be a,
Could contemplate a joint.
it doesn't have to be a, nothing has to involve the actual candidates, it's more about process.
Right.
Yep.
Perhaps a joint meeting, maybe not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday.
Yeah, well, except, I don't mind the board doing that, I'm not sure I could make that, it's the 12th, is it?
It would be the 12th.
Yeah.
It's Martin's birthday.
Let's take,
Let you
let's
guys meet
take
on
it a
Wednesday.
couple days at a
Right,
time.
okay.
The last and final thing that I want to discuss with the Board of Selectmen is the Board of Selectmen's participation in the assessment center as observers. I thought that the police chief process, I would have benefited from seeing each of the candidates who is here in front of us in the assessment center themselves. Now, the trick here is that we may well be assessing more candidates than we recommend onto the Board of Selectmen. So there, the Board of Selectmen is going to have thick skin and say, hey, the one I wanted is not the one you advanced. But
You always have the right at the end of the day to throw them out, and,
Well,
it's not all, I
that is-
don't recommend that.
I would
but,
not recommend it, but that is absolutely true, that the Board of Selectmen has the prerogative to say, thank you very much for your work task. We're not appointing either of these, or any of these. But I would very much like the Board of Selectmen to be able to observe that assessment center process, because it will be so finely attuned to the goals and objectives of the Board of Selectmen, the staff that they're going to administer, and what we collectively of a town has established as the job
So
description.
the date, the timing of that is very important, and it's gotta be something that works for folks, so,
To the extent we
votes
can.
and dates, please.
Yep, very well. So,
Okay.
so we're gonna look at how to make that. I don't see any reason why the Board of Selectmen couldn't be invited and involved, understanding that it would be an executive session if there was a quorum present to
Right.
the Board of Selectmen.
Cindy, how come we didn't do it with the police? There was a reason why we didn't have all the selectmen there. Some of them,
I thought we opened it up to everybody, they just couldn't make
I
it.
don't even remember being
Oh, okay.
aware of it.
I
know
thought there was some
went.
confusion on that, because I thought some members
some
were
of us went,
present.
but we didn't want to have a quorum for some reason. I thought it would have taken advice from somebody.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's weird.
I plan to sort of interrogate this idea on Wednesday night, and if there is a compelling legal reason not to, I'll certainly let you guys
Feel
know.
free to call Darren Klein or,
I think
thought it was just a
I think it's a
scheduling
great
thing.
idea. I'm not against the idea. I'm just asking why we didn't do it.
Now that you say that, Joe, because I know Chuck and I were there.
you were members of the committee, right?
No,
Well,
Joe and I were.
Joe and you were, right.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just thought it was a scheduling issue. I didn't know that it was.
Maybe it was.
I remember after the fact finding out that some members were in attendance and saying, gee, I didn't even know we could go.
Interesting.
Well,
All right, well, that was.
water
that.
under the
This is
bridge,
not-
we're
right.
not gonna repeat that mistake unless we, for some legal reason, are
Can't do it.
compelled
See why
to
we can't just
repeat
post
that
it and go,
mistake.
yeah.
Okay.
I do have one final thing to note here. We, at the conclusion of this process, absolutely have to go back and relook at that bylaw.
I agree.
Here's why. Tim Goddard, out of an abundance of caution, has recused himself from participating because the
In the
from the interviews forward. Per the MMA's ethical guidelines, he received guidance when asked them, unrelated to his relationship with any specific candidate, inquired with them about their ethical guidelines, and they actually indicated that up through the assessment of candidates, he was probably okay, that is, resumes and whatnot. But their MMA's ethical guidelines would not permit him to participate in the interviews and decision-making process.
That would apply to anybody who was an MMA member.
And that would apply to anyone who is an MMA member. And so fundamentally now, like, this thing's broken.
So,
Right,
I
it's
mean,
crazy.
when I went to the Mass Selectmen Association meeting, they gave out a sheet, best practices for hiring your next town administrator. They have that, it's the whole bylaw.
Really?
Yeah, it's exactly what we should put in the bylaw. So I have that. I'll share it. It's
Yeah, we should.
I mean-
It's step by step.
I think
Who
it's
should be
too
on the
limited
committee?
anyway. I mean, I think one of the, and this is not a criticism of your current board, I just think one of the strengths of the police board was broad enough to include a lot of different views. It had to work differently, but,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a good guide that we can rely upon when
Can
reviewing
you-
that bylaw.
Circulate that to us?
I can.
Yeah, great.
Yep, I'll do that.
Okay, can I invite Anthony back? Are we still on this?
Well, let's see what kind of mischief we can cause him. Unless anyone has any additional questions for me.
No.
Oh, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Chase.
Thanks,
You
Jeff.
put a lot into it, and, yeah, just be mindful, as I'm sure you are, that since a couple of things coming out of your meeting on the 5th, we all get crazy schedules this time of year, and this is one of those items where everybody really ought to be involved to the extent they can be, so,
Yeah,
thank you.
unequivocally.
Okay, cool. All right. I don't know how far he's gone, but, oh, he is? Oh, okay, well.
I mean, I do appreciate him excusing
Don't
himself.
open the door, you might hit his
It is,
head, you
of
know?
course.
Watch anytime. He's watching it upstairs.
Yeah, right. I mean,
He's up in the
frankly,
cable room.
as anyone that we interviewed should be doing.
Oh, well,
You
we,
know.
we used to have an officer of the police department who would have his wife in the audience when other people were being interviewed. I won't mention any names, but you might remember. He's no longer with the department. Okay. Well, this ought to be a breakneck pace on the remainder of the agenda.
We just lost our audience.
Yeah, really?
Was it something I said?
You came
They came in, they all left.
Yeah.
Good night,
You
Ann.
shouldn't read anything into
No,
that.
not at all, thanks. Thanks for the support.
Okay. Item 7B, I believe is where we're at, allocating funds to veterans for VFW support. Anthony?
Yep, let me get that up. All right, so the last meeting, we talked about the draft lease that was in the packet.
Yes.
And it was the three issues that were really on the table. That the lease allowed us to, the use of the premises up to 15 hours a week. The term was 5 years. The rent was $10,000 per year. None of that changed. So the VFW was fine with the language. So what we have tonight is actually the contract that's signed by the commander at the VFW, and if it's acceptable to the Board of Selectmen, you would sign it, and the lease would be into effect.
Board members have a chance to review that information that was in the packet? And any comments, discussion points? No?
I have
Yep,
a
Cindy?
comment. So I was thinking, as you know, Chuck and I are on the Space Needs Working Group.
Yep.
So I was thinking about the VFW, and it's pretty much vacant during the day. And it's certainly a usable space.
Huh.
So I spoke to Hal Baker and John Brodsky, and I said, what are your thoughts on having us utilize space in the function room with the VFW during the day?
Couple of stacks of books in there, we got a new library.
Right? There you go. And
Solved that one.
That's why it's called chairman.
problem solution. So, they were agreeable to that. They
Sweet,
said
all right.
certainly.
I'm gonna get a call on that
I actually
one.
met with them briefly before I came here. The only concern was securing the bar area, which is easy enough to do because those doors lock. So that's something they're definitely open to. So I think it's something that we should look into and see what programs possibly that maybe are being operated in the multipurpose room.
Yeah.
That could be taken, held over at the V during the day. because it's sitting empty,
Right.
so why not utilize it?
Yeah, I have a senior staff meeting tomorrow at 11 o'clock. I can bring that up to Alicia Day, and Liz is not there. Obviously, she's still on a maternity, but that would be an opportunity for some of the adult programs to utilize that space. So I can float that out there, and we can start that discussion.
It could also go into the rotation just for meetings, if we get, cramped for space for, boards and committees or
absolutely.
organizations.
Sometimes it's nice to just have it
Change
of
it,
scenery,
yes,
too.
sure,
Yeah.
with a bar.
Yeah, exactly. So there's definitely
no
a
bar
look at
here?
that. I did look at the Council on
Germans
Aging,
bomb
their
Pearl
program
Harbor.
schedule. At the classes that are held in the morning, if they can be held in the multipurpose room, they could certainly be held over at the VFW.
Right.
And then that would free up the multipurpose
Yeah.
room for the Park and Rec, for some of their programs. So I think there's a lot of potential there, and I appreciate Hal and John, definitely, certainly being on board.
We don't want people to think that we're imagining this as long-term solutions, but certainly
No,
short-term
but-
solutions,
but
yeah.
we need short-term solutions.
Yep.
We
Right.
talked
Yep.
about that at length, so that's something to think about.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
and
Well,
pursue.
Cindy.
That goes a long way to ameliorating my minor concern with this, which is what is the town actually getting here? But that,
Right. Yep, so, there
I
you
like
go.
Okay, terrific, all right. Any further discussion? Then I will entertain a motion.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to enter into a lease agreement with the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 6556, effective November 29, 2018 through November 29, 2023, subject to annual appropriation.
Second.
Motion's been made by Selectman Napoli, seconded by Selectman DeCoste. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Unanimous? The ayes have it. All right, Anthony's schedule?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's that time of year that we schedule the next 5 months' worth of meetings time. So the proposed dates are listed here, and there's some explanation why those dates were selected for selectmen's meetings.
I see, I don't have any quibble with it, with one odd little exception. It's just on our joint meetings. I always like to think that we share the wealth and different boards host. It looks like the two joint FinCom school committee meetings are both on FinCom meeting nights, and we haven't yet met on a night that's most convenient for the school committee. Is there any chance we would
Accommodate them.
accommodate them?
Yeah, I think the reason why the 22nd was chosen was because the Monday's the holiday, but, yeah, I see no reason why we couldn't switch things around and change those to the Thursday. I don't know what the school committee's schedule.
I don't know if they voted last Thursday.
Yeah.
Their schedule, and I think
I mean, I don't mind voting this, subject to the, the opportunity to change it if amend it if the school, I'd like to, make it clear that we consider them equal partners, obviously, and they should have a meeting to host the same as we do and FinCom does.
I can work on that.
The only thought I had, and I don't have a strong opinion on it, but by meeting on the 17th in December and not meeting again until the 14th of January, that's a long period of time, and I know the 7th, it would put 3 weeks between the 7th and the 28th, but it also would shorten the period between the December meeting and the first January meeting. The board members have any thoughts on that?
my only
We
thought
went to
was,
that last year.
that might be, that setup may be okay because we are meeting on January 5th,
Oh, right, yeah.
all day on Saturday.
Yep.
Right.
I have the same concern. My guess is, though, that 5th was sort of,
If we needed
acting as
to,
a
a
placeholder.
post on the 5th, we could actually address any issues conceivably, right, on the 5th?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
right,
Plus,
so we needed to
Yeah,
take care
okay,
of
so
it.
we can leave the schedule as is, knowing that we're meeting on the 5th, and,
and some of the time may have been left open with anticipation for possible interviews for the town administrator.
Oh, right.
So it gives you an opportunity, because you're going to have, assuming,
Have to add
add something and
Right,
not be part of a regularly scheduled meeting.
unless things are oddly quiet, but that should be the anticipation, yeah. Okay. All right, well, with those things in mind, board members have any known scheduling conflicts or anything?
No known ones at this time.
Right.
I don't know what my may
Certain to
actually looks
change.
like, but
Right. And, you know, we don't often say it, but we always reserve the right to change the schedule. You know, if you find out you're not going to be here, you're going somewhere, and you want to change a meeting date, you know, it's not something we want to encourage, but we can certainly accommodate.
oh, actually, you know, what, I do have one.
Yeah.
When's election day?
It's in here somewhere. Town election?
Yeah.
Monday, May 6th. No, I'm sorry, Saturday, May 11th.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah.
No, man, good.
May 6th, town meeting.
What's that?
May
The
6th,
town
town
meeting, yeah. Okay, everyone's had a chance to review this. I'll entertain a motion.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule the following Board of Selectmen's regular meetings for the dates indicated at 6:30 PM in room 103 Shattuck Street Building. January 14th and 28th, 2019, February 11th and 25th, 2019, March 11th and 25th, 2019, April 8th and 22nd, 2019, and May 13th and 20th, 2019.
Second.
Motion's been made by Selectman Napoli, seconded by Selectman Knox. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it, unanimous. All right.
Now, Mr. Chairman, the next item is an executive session item. There's two items that are on for executive session. One is with respect to litigation on Nagog Pond. The second issue is an executive session for non-union contract strategy for Fire Chief Scott Wazinski, Deputy Chief Tom Clancy from the Fire Department, and Police Deputy Chief Jeff Patterson. So with that, I created two motions because there's two issues, and both would be roll call, and it'd be the board's pleasure, we probably wouldn't come back in open session thereafter.
Okay. Any discussion or questions on the reasons we're entertaining an executive session? No. Okay. The way the language read, all right, I'm looking at a different,
Yeah, that was, I put them both together on one,
I gotcha.
changed them around.
okay. And they both need to be read separately, do they, Anthony?
Because it's two issues, I didn't get a chance for town council to confirm that, so I'd recommend that we do it twice.
Fair enough. A good idea. So we'll take them one at a time, and each will be a roll call vote. So, someone like to read the first motion?
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize and support, no, sorry. Going into?
This will be 10, right? Yeah.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21, subsection A, Clauses 2 and Clause 3.
No, Chuck, can you read that one,
Up there.
please?
Move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, subsection A, Clauses 3 to convene, Clause 3 to convene in executive session, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, since an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on litigation position of the board relative to Nagog Pond, and not to convene in open session thereafter.
Second.
Okay, the motion's made by Selectman DeCoste, seconded by Selectman Napoli. All those in favor, we'll do a roll call vote. Selectman Knox?
Aye.
Selectman DeCoste?
Aye.
Selectman Gerbig?
Aye.
And Selectman Napoli?
Aye.
Selectman Glavy, aye as well. Ayes have it. All right, second motion, please.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, subsection A2, to go into executive session for strategy with respect to contract negotiations with non-union personnel, and not to convene in open session thereafter.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made by Selectman DeCoste, seconded by Selectman Napoli. All those in favor, again on a roll call vote. Selectman Napoli?
Aye.
Selectman Gerbig?
Aye.
Selectman DeCoste?
Aye.
Selectman Knox? And the chair, Selectman Glavy, votes aye as well. Thank you and good night, folks.